in this class, once a quiz or exam has been graded, you will get an email and you will be able to view your work online. And what I have here is a sample quiz. Now this is just sort of a pretend quiz, but I'd like to go through so that you can walk through what you'll do. I would encourage you to do this every time you receive one of these emails. So you get an email sent from Gradescope saying that perhaps a quiz has been graded and is now available to view online. And what I have here is two windows that are open, and generally speaking you're going to want to do this, is to open one window here. The window here on the left is Gradescope, and you see right here a scan of the student's work. Here the student's name is Daffy Duck. And then here are the three questions, and we have some things to go through here, but just in a moment. And then the window on the right is a PDF with the key. So the window on the left is Gradescope, that's that website, and then the key is available in the learning management system. So there's actually quite a number of things to look at kind of back and forth. I would encourage you not to just look at the key alone and not to just look at your work alone, but to compare the key to your work over here and compare that to the rubric. And where's the rubric, you might ask? It is available. What you need to do is, for instance, this is a pretend quiz that consists of 3 questions. So you click on the question title right here. You see that this student has earned 3 out of 10 points. So let's go ahead and click right here where it says Simplify Radical Expression. That's the title of the question. And then you'll see over here the rubric. The way this is organized is that I have tried to do this so that typically speaking, there may be some exceptions, but the first several rubric items are the things that you want to get. Those are the positive rubric items. You want to, generally speaking, earn as many of those as possible. And then right after, so those should add up to however many points, typically speaking. So there's 10 points possible, and if you look here, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, plus 1, plus 1, that would be the 10 points. And generally speaking, right after that, there will be sort of common errors or penalties, mistakes that people might make, and those have this, they're in red here, and you see a -1 attached to that. So your goal is to get all of the things at the top that correspond to positive points that would add up to the 10 possible points, in this case 10 possible points. Your goal is to get all of those top ones with none of the penalties that are below. So what about for this student? Which things apply? Well, you'll notice this checkbox on this rubric item here, and this it's harder to see, but this box kind of surrounding it. And then this check mark, and then this box. So this one, that one, and then this, and then finally this penalty. That's what applies to this student. And of course, there's some things to dig into. You can read through the text, and if it's confusing, please drop by and ask. But let's take a look and zoom in, and then take a look at the key here. And you can kind of go through and see there are some similarities to between the key that I've written up here and then this. This is also my handwriting, but we're pretending this is a student. This is a fictitious student, and we see some errors. Most notably, for instance, that a 1-point penalty did apply to this question for the student in the missing or improper use of equal signs, and you even see that mentioned right here in this blue comment, and we'll talk about that a little more later. So how did this work out? The student earned 3 out of 10, and the reason was for earning 1 positive point, 1 more positive, 1 more positive, 1 more positive. That should be 4 normally, but there is a 1-point penalty, so that brings us down to 3 points. What you see otherwise is the entire rubric, everybody sees the same rubric, but what you'll see is a check mark next to the items that apply to yours. So there's actually quite a lot of information here. No matter which things were selected, I would encourage you to go through and take a look at what was selected for you, and then read through the comments. And that will make a little bit more sense if we take a look at the second question. So let's go ahead and click here. Second question, the student fared a lot better, 8 out of 10 points. So let's click on the question title to see what happened. What prevented somebody from getting all 10 possible points for this question? Now we'll zoom in a little bit on the scan as well. So it looks like the difference here is that there are really 2 methods here. So there's a first method, the positive points, there are 2 points, 2 points, 3 points, 3 points. That would be a full 10. But there were 2 penalties that applied to the student. Looks like one was missing the word or, which is also mentioned in the key, and then the other's a little more innocent, but looks like, you have an x plus 5 equals 0, you got to subtract 5 on both sides to have x equals -5, and you'll see that in the key, right? So these are the kinds of things to compare closely when you take a look. But, you know, overall, quite good job. And so, you know, the 10 positive points here and then 2-point penalty. Sorry, 2 1-point penalties. And but then these things didn't apply. This is the second method for the student who's completing the square. This other rubric would be followed. And you'll see here that for a student who used method 2, there was a potential 2-point penalty for missing the plus or minus sign. And even if, you know, this student, Daffy Duck, didn't follow this method, it's still good to read through the entire rubric and go, right. It's just sort of a reminder to make sure to look out for those sort of common mistakes. You'll see even in the key, sometimes this occurs. I'll write up the key and not think of another method that somebody might do, but you'll see that work over here. So finally, let's look at the third question. This is 10 out of 10, but still, I think it's a good thing to look through the rubric. So we'll click on the question title, and you'll see here, perfect score, 10 out of 10. These first 3 items are positive. All 3 of those are checked, and none of these negative penalty items are checked. But it'd be good to read through and make sure to see, oh yeah, those are some errors. Those are common errors that perhaps another student may have made. And you want to try to make sure not to make those errors, and those things didn't occur for this student. I think that's about it as far as what I want to say. And again, every time that a quiz or an exam is graded, I encourage you to come through here and question by question, compare the scan of your work against the rubric, make sure that everything was selected correctly. Sometimes there are mistakes, and please bring these to my attention. But compare, I would say read through everything here because there's a lot of information that can be very helpful. But compare your own work to the rubric. Both of those are in Gradescope. Also to the key, right? There's 3 places to look, really. So there's these 2 windows. You've got your scan, you've got the rubric, and then you have the key. And as long as I have you here, let me just open up the key a little bit more widely and point out that I use some colors a little bit, and you'll notice that I have a word about this up here that, like, in a typical solution, maybe you have more steps, maybe you have fewer steps. It's shown in black ink, and then in red ink you'll see the warnings. Common mistakes that people make, I try to address and write them in red. And then, you know, just kind of helpful comments often, or a hint of how I got there, what I was thinking. Those are in blue ink. And then finally, there is this code that you might need if you're watching this video, and that code is 6318.